Innovation. It charges our imagination, fuels our progress, and builds bridges that span oceans. It turns our wildest hopes and dreams into reality. It powers our movement, creates new worlds to explore, and gives birth to new jobs in new industries. There's only one place and one event where the world's greatest creators and purveyors of innovation meet. This is where ordinary comes to die, and expectations are shattered. This is the 2015 International CES. Innovation is here.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Senior Vice President, Communications and Strategic Relationships, CEA, Jeff Joseph.
Good morning. Good morning. Hopefully you're welcome to day 2 of the International CES. I hope you're having a great show. And welcome to our keynote on fast innovation, disrupt or be disruptive. Of course, disruption of the status quo is really what CES is all about. Anyone with a great idea can come to CES with a better way of doing something and challenge existing business models. If you haven't already visited Eureka Park in the Sands to see the startups, get over there. You'll see young startups and the entrepreneurs who are passionate about the products and services they have developed and representing the future of our industry. You know, it's not always comfortable, but disruption is how our industry innovates and continues to be the best. Today, we have executives from Bosch, Cisco, and Comcast participating in the discussion of the evolution of connections between people, data, business, and innovation as enabled by the Internet of Everything and a connected society. We're excited to hear from these creative leaders who are connecting with their customers to create new products and services. We look forward to their insights on the future of personalization of services and how the availability of consumer data is changing relationships between companies and their customers. David Kirkpatrick, founder, host, and CEO of Technonomy, will moderate the panel. He is a journalist, technology commentator, and author of the best-selling book, The Facebook Effect, the inside story of the company that is connecting the world, which has been published in 32 countries. He spent 25 years at Fortune and founded and hosted its Brainstorm and Brainstorm Tech conferences. In addition to writing for Technonomy, he contributes to Forbes and Vanity Fair and is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. Please welcome David Kirkpatrick, who will introduce our prominent panelists.
Thanks a lot. Okay, we're swarming onto the stage here. Welcome, everybody. We have a really terrific group here. I can't see anything, so I hope there are people out there.
More than 5 people out
I think there are some people out there. But anyway, this is going to be a very meaty conversation. You know, it's billed as about innovation and speed, and I think that's a key part of what we're going to be discussing. But the other reality is that all 3 of these guys lead companies that are deeply involved in what is really, I think unquestionably the key theme of this year's CES, which is the Internet of Things and this growing layer of connectivity that's sort of spreading across modern life. So I think you'll find that in addition to talking about the ways that companies need to innovate differently and faster, one of the reasons why, especially these 3 guys think that's necessary is because the landscape is shifting in large part because of the Internet of Things, Internet of Everything, as John likes to say. Mm-hmm. And so that's sort of the dual theme of this discussion. And let me just quickly introduce these people who don't need too much introduction, especially the one on my near left, John Chambers. I don't even think I need to say anything. He's legendary. He's been there for a long time. He's done
not that long, John.
We won't give it the years. I don't even know. But you're one of the longest standing CEOs in the Fortune 500, I think, even at this point. But
thank you.
I think
started when you were very young,
actually.
didn't you?
Yeah, I started when I was a teenager. Thanks, Neil.
So next to him, Neil Smith, who runs all of Comcast's cable businesses, and it's like, oh, does they have other things? Oh, yeah, they bought NBC. But so he runs 80% of Comcast, which is by far the largest U.S. Cable company. So he's delivering broadband and television into more than 20 million homes, and he does a lot of other stuff, which he'll tell us about. And finally, Werner Struth of Bosch, who runs all the North American operations of Bosch and also is on the managing board of the company globally. He's had jobs all over the world for Bosch, which I'll let him describe the range of things Bosch does because they're quite impressive. But it's a company that's huge in automotive, also in consumer appliances and manufacturing products and other things. And hugely devoted to connectivity at Bosch. So I just wanted, the pace of change is kind of sort of one of the overarching themes we have here. And John, talk to us a little bit about how you've been thinking about that at Cisco. And I know you've concretely made a lot of changes at Cisco recently, specifically because of the pace of change that you're concerned about. So explain that.
Well, in the high-tech industry, our competitors from 15 to 20 years ago, none of them exist. And from 10 to 15 years ago, great companies, Alcatel, Lucent, Nortel, Ericsson, are a shadow of where they were before. And the same thing will happen to Cisco if we don't constantly change and innovate. So innovation is really what makes Silicon Valley go. But what you're about to see, and David's comments earlier, I think, redraw it home, as you begin to think about the Internet of Everything, when you connect all these capabilities, every country, every city, every company, every citizen, every home, every automobile, every sporting event will be connected. In other words, they'll become digital. And that's a nice way of saying that as this digitization occurs, the speed of change in every industry in our everyday lives will mimic more what has happened in high tech because everybody will be a tech company. And that's a nice
that's
way
a phrase
of saying,
we've used, the techonomy, for many years.
Yes.
Every company is a technology company.
And so as every company becomes digital and every person becomes digital, the speed of change in healthcare, our entertainment, will be dramatic. For companies, to put it in perspective, it used to be that maybe 25% of the Fortune 500 would survive for 25 years on that list. I would project today that out of the large enterprise customers in this room, the companies in this room, including us, that only 40% of us will exist in a meaningful way in 10 years. So the speed of change
only
is
40%, so 60% will go away in the next 10 years.
Will have the potential to be non-material in the next 10 years.
Wow.
So it speaks to change. So I look at this as an opportunity for how do you lead in this? How do you innovate as a company? How do you really take these technologies everybody gets excited about as cloud and security and connecting everything and really get an outcome you want, whether it's a healthcare outcome, extending the person's life longer, dealing with chronic disease, or whether it's a company that truly reinvents itself. And to your question specifically about Cisco, we've changed more in the last year organizationally to position ourselves for the future than we have in any 5 years before that. And I think most people, David, would say we've changed our company pretty regularly. Interestingly enough, part of the reason I'm moving fast is because of this gentleman on my left. I watched what he did at Comcast and how he changed so quickly your leadership team and your transitions in the last 5 years. So I think the speed of change is probably one of the key messages, whether you're an individual contributor out there today, a service provider, a media company, or a startup.
But just talk about a couple of the specific things you've done in these last 6 months where you've shaken things up so much at Cisco.
Well, if you were to look at it as an example, we used to be organized how our customers would buy products, routers, switches, wireless, data center. In the last 6 months, we reorganized the whole company, moved almost 70% of our engineering organization to different reporting functions, did something that was very painful for us, laid off 6,000 people and hired 6,000 back with different skill sets. And David, as you know, I know every person almost in the company in terms of their family, their key issues. We're there for them like no other group does. We organized more on outcomes, so moving from selling boxes to outcomes. We organized around our customers, enterprise customers or service providers, and we did that not just with engineering, but with sales, services, and brought them together. That required a change in culture, it required a change in organization, it required a change in compensation, and it took us about 6 months to get to where we are, but part of the way we set it up is I had Neil's team come in from Comcast and share the changes that you all have made. And
is that really true? You concretely brought lessons from Comcast in
Absolutely.
For this process.
It was really cool because when we brought 300 of our top leaders together, once the Comcast team started talking, then my own team said, John, we need to be more like them. We need to move faster. So it couldn't have set us up better for the change. Now, having said that, as all CEOs know in this audience, change is really hard. But it's going to be required for survival. A lot of very high rewards, candidly, a lot of challenges. But this digitization of every company is going to require that to occur.
And I think we learned as much from the changes that you did as you did from us. I mean, I think it was a very good exchange of ideas. And in the partnership, I think going forward in this dynamic environment, the partnerships are going to become more and more important. And being agile in how you partner with companies and who's doing what and what roles they're going to play. And I think we've achieved that very well. But it took your leadership from the top, John. I think we have monthly calls where we get on the line with the phone with the various people, and we discuss are we hitting objectives or not. It comes down to execution to a great extent.
There's an example also, because two companies working together, it's hard enough to get your own company to go somewhere, but with the speed of change going on in the market, you have to align with other peers to achieve common goals. Werner, we do the same type of thing with Bosch.
I pretty much appreciate your comments that you made on the change, on the innovation that we have to see, and your comments on the survival rate of the top 500 that we see here in the world. I would like to recommend considering innovation and change as a very good recipe for prolongation of the lifespan. Mm-hmm. Let me give you an example. The company Robert Bosch was founded in 1886. And the first disruptive innovation of Bosch has been done in 1887, which was the magneto injection device, ignition device that has been introduced. What was the result out of that? That was the prerequisite to establish mobility on a broad basis with high efficiency and high power combustion engines. And I think a company definitely needs to be prepared to change immediately, because over 100 years we have adjusted the company in regular periods in order to adjust to the environment, which is permanently changing. And from our perspective, this change that we have seen in the past will become even faster and more shorter cycled than we see it today.
You know, Werner, we just put out our 2015 objectives, and the headline was "Innovate Everything."
Absolutely.
I think it's moving at that pace.
That is true for products, that is true for technologies, that is true for services and business models. I think we later on will talk about the Internet of Things or everything. The real thrilling and exciting thing is the business models that are enabled by the Internet of Everything. Yeah? And if you don't innovate, including our internal constitution, our organization, we will have a hard time. But I think that companies like ours have good reason to be quite optimistic that we have the power and the inherent creativity to always adjust a little bit ahead of the change and to be part of the change.
I would agree, but I'd say you're more the exception. If you watch, watch what Uber is doing to the taxi industry, what Airbnb is doing to the hospitality industry, what Amazon did in many ways to bookstores. You watch a great company like Walmart have to reinvent itself virtually and physically to survive. And their CEO is a really great CEO. He knows that they have to move dramatically, or even the most powerful company in the world will get left behind, David. And I think that's kind of why I enjoyed the topic of the panel so much. Fast innovation. You either disrupt, and at times you've got to disrupt your industry, but you've got to disrupt yourself. And when you disrupt yourself, it is painful.
I think a lot of it's driven by the consumer desire for immediate gratification. I mean, you think of Uber, I want my car here in 2 minutes, or Amazon, same-day mail, or on demand, and it just seems like in order we need to adapt to that and build our systems and our processes and our networks to be able to offer that immediate gratification and get the bits there in shorter time periods.
Yes, and all of them are digital companies.
Yeah.
That's interesting. What you just said made me wonder if there's possibly an analogy with companies themselves needing more immediate gratification. I mean, companies have to be constantly kind of iterating, almost like we do as people in our personalities. It's not, the fixity of companies is so changed from what it was. And one of the things that we talk about at Techonomy is something we call the end of industries. The idea that siloed industry concepts are increasingly irrelevant, and the companies that are going to succeed in the future are going to be those that understand not only the adjacencies around them, other industries, but potentially take learning from completely disparate industries. And it is fascinating to observe Uber and Airbnb in specific, that they're not really in the industries they're disrupting, right?
That's right.
They're just platforms. They're not marketplaces and who could disrupt a lot of other industries as well. But does that resonate at all, Neil, for example?
Yeah, well, I think it's a very, very resonant with us. We really changed when we moved all our systems up into the cloud. And
this is the X1?
The X1 platform.
Explain that a little bit, yeah.
The X1 platform is a cloud-based user interface, and it takes the television experience to a whole new realm. It has intelligent search and recommendations and much easier paths to finding your content and discovering your content. And we just launched a voice-activated remote, so you can say, "What's on ESPN tonight?" or show me all the shows about kids basketball, and it'll bring up the content. And what was interesting about the process, though, is it's in taking everything up in the cloud, we can now move in days and weeks and not months and years. And so we're putting out twice the number of products we did a few years ago. And I think our patents are up 30% in per year over the last 4 years. And it's just really stimulated the organization, and it was a real game changer for us in terms of how we innovate. And we had to change the structure of the organization to adapt to that too.
That's one of the, I think, the key takeaways also. We all tend to think about the change as all about technology. You've got to change people, and you've got to change culture and process that goes with that. So the technology might actually be the easiest part. I hadn't thought about it until you said it, David, but if you think about each of our industries, our core products, regardless of what industry you're in, have a tendency to commoditize. So if you don't move, using your words...
You think that's true in every industry?
In every industry. And so if you don't move into market adjacencies, or as you move into market adjacencies, bring additional function back to your core products, you don't maintain your profit margins. And so I think that's a classic
There's that immediate gratification issue.
Yeah, the gratification I have to think about. It's actually
profit,
uncomfortable.
Right? That's how gratification is measured in your case. Yes.
Yeah, well, gratification used to be always make the decision for what's right 5 to 7 years out. Right now, long-term planning, it just goes 3 years.
But what about this? I mean, this adjacency thing, was it always true? It just is happening faster now, so it's more urgent? Or is it something that's new in itself?
I would like to refer to one of the statements of John, which was very interesting, and which is related to the adjacencies as well. You said the technology is the easy part of that. Yes. And that is our strong belief as well. If you talk about Internet of Things and services, yes, we have to have a technology platform that includes hardware, that includes software, that includes algorithms, but the lion's share of all that is already today available, so we just need to do it. The key question is, what do we do with all the information that we can gain out of that, out of the many sensors that we have, out of many data that we have? How do we manage to transform data into information, and how to transfer information to knowledge, deep knowledge of the domains, be it production or mobility or home convenience or whatsoever, and how to make a business out of that? And if you do this, and make a real deep drilling to the underlying common denominators that we have to have as an enabler for that, we at least realize that there are various business domains have pretty much in common, and then we can capitalize on that. Let me give you a very simple example for that. Very simple example. It's pretty much hardware-oriented, but it is just a very concrete example. Do you have an example what OBD, onboard diagnosis of exhaust gas management, has to do with the oven in your kitchen? Any idea about that? They are based on the same sensor, which is a lambda sensor. We have introduced out of the technology automotive a solution into the technology home appliances. We put a lambda sensor into the oven, and as of now, you may be sure that every cake, every cookie automatically is being baked to its best performance.
This is a sensor that used to be in the tailpipe of the car, basically.
That is the cross-divisional, cross-functional story about adjacencies that John just mentioned.
But it's so because I think you should talk a little bit about what Bosch does, because the fact that you are sort of thought of as an automotive parts supplier, but in fact, you've got this huge, also got a good brand, consumer appliances, but you're now taking learnings from one to the other, so being in multiple industries yourself is proving hugely beneficial.
Yeah, I don't want to make a promotional show for Bosch here today, but I just would like to know we have basically 4 major business sectors that we are in. Last year we called it automotive business. Now we changed the name of the automotive business to mobility solutions. That's another part of the change that we are currently undergoing, because our target and our business model is not automotive only, but mobility in a wider scope. We have household appliances, we call it consumer goods, including power tools. We have building and energy management system and industrial goods. And we understand that within these areas of our business, we have many commonalities that we can capitalize on. And that is one part of the innovation process at Bosch, to make sure that we have a cross-divisional, cross-domain exchange of information internally, but also with external benchmarks. And that is a real source of new ideas and business models.
Staying with your concept and taking what Werner just said, companies who don't innovate fast are going to get left behind. Now, we've always said that, but that was really only true in the high-tech industry. It took an automotive company decades, once they made mistakes, before it really showed up in a big way. It took a large financial organization or a conglomerate literally decades as mistakes were made or missed opportunities were made before it really had a transition. In high tech, you miss one transition by 2 years, you're out of business, or you lose huge market share. All of us are going to have to think about innovation differently, but we've got to think more like an entrepreneur company, a startup. And when you start, I hang out with startups a lot now for a very selfish reason. I'll talk to 70 French startups tomorrow. I talked to a couple dozen Israeli startups 2 weeks ago about telepresence. Every month now we meet with venture capitalists with 8 to 12 of their startup CEOs to teach about how do you grow a corporation, but selfishly I'm after the reverse. What are your key takeaways? And when you talk to an Aaron Levy at Box, or you talk to a Patrick Collinson at Stripe, a payment company, they think exponentially. And I'm sitting there thinking, they're right. Some things I can think linearly on, perhaps routing evolution or switching evolution. But if you're in security, or if you're in data center, if you're in the Internet of Everything, if you're not thinking exponentially, if you're not thinking like a startup, if you're not doing innovation with that speed, if your fast IT organization inside your company can't deliver that for you, you're history.
Yeah.
And so that speed, yes, I think it's going to be true across all industries. And a parallel, I think we've got to think more like startups.
Yeah, and that's a great, I love the way you're helping me moderate up here, by the way. Because honestly...
I think that was a compliment.
That was a compliment. No, the less work I have to do, the better. I told these guys as we were walking up, let's make it as conversational as possible. And they're actually doing it, which is great. But, all 3 companies are doing a lot to try to, as giants, and you're all giants, to act more like startups. One of the things I noticed as I was doing the prepping is that at Comcast, you use the word sprints for some of the things you're doing. And at Bosch, you talk about scrums. So you're really, really concretely taking these ideas of really moving fast and doing things in different ways. But I wanted to show the little video that Bosch brought, because Bosch, I think, maybe is the company of the 3 here that is least well known. So I thought maybe a little bit of an insight into how this giant company, this German auto and other companies is changing itself might be worth seeing a window into. So let's roll that short video of the hackathon that Bosch had in Berlin just a few weeks ago.
The Bosch Hackathon is designed to be an event for something that we call collaborative communication. People work on their project, on their creative project, but at the same time they communicate about it.
A lot of people came together to work on really interesting topics, specifically in car infotainment, which is a new topic for a lot of us.
really nice to hack inside the car, to hack inside the building, meet new people.
Okay, so I want to hear about the sprints in a minute, but Werner, talk a little bit about why you did that, and what what does that represent about the way Bosch is changing its culture, and what are some other things like that, and what did you get out of it, or any of the answers?
I think that we have very exciting situation at Bosch because we have a lot of inherent creativity, but also we have to capitalize on external creativity. And in addition, we also want to understand how to set up new organizational principles within our own organization. You mentioned that we are giants, yeah? But yes, we are giants, but unfortunately a giant is a big mass and you need a strong power, much power, in order to make it move.
A big target also.
A big target also. So the approach that we are following is setting up agile teams within our organization with the Scrum methodology, which, by the way, includes the sprint approach that we have, and to gain experience both internally, also externally, we did this hackathon here that you have shown in this little video. And one of the conclusions that we have drawn out of the hackathon, yes, of course, there are no applications for MySpin, but the background information behind is how to set up the organization, to have agile teams which have not necessarily a hierarchy, but to come over with a four-dimensional network of an organization. What does it mean? It means functional competencies, cross-functional organization, cross-divisional organization, including external participants in these agile teams, and an agile team, the composition of which changes over time. And this is what we exactly tested with the hackathon and other similar events that we did already. And that was the major purpose from my perspective, and it was a great learning for us.
So you're going to be doing more of those?
Yeah, we are doing it in the company meanwhile as well. We have many examples, a lot of pilot projects where we are running this Scrum methodology and based on the agile teams, and we made very good experience.
Well, okay, I want to hear about the sprints, and also I think the way you did X1 was an example of that, right?
Yeah, very much so. We took a team off-site, and there was a cross-functional team, as Werner was saying. So you had people from engineering, development, marketing, sales, finance, HR working together instead of tubular, siloed organizations. So we could get the product to market quicker. So we developed the product there, and then when it was ready to scale, we'd plug it into the big machine, and we'd roll it out. We now have over 5 million X1 boxes out. One of the big findings we had there, though, was it's not just a set-top box. We call it an entertainment operating platform because it can extend into other areas because it's IP-based, and so you could go into e-commerce or gaming or whatever direction we wanted to head in because we now have that platform in the house. And it led us to realize that, gee, we need to build up our Wi-Fi capability. So we talked about adjacencies. And Wi-Fi, if you think about all these connected devices or sensors, we work very closely with John's team on this. I go out on the floor there and I say, gee, we got to keep beefing up our Wi-Fi. We've got 8 million hotspots, and the Wi-Fi.
You operate 8 million hotspots.
Right. And the Wi-Fi is providing that connectivity and that integration of the different experiences for the various devices. So you don't want if you have your home network set up, you don't want your dishwasher to get the flu and your lights to go off. So somehow that has to be controlled. And I think one of the important things is figuring out how to control those various data points coming in and how to manage that data and make it all work for the consumer.
Now, when you're going into businesses like home security, which is a big priority for you, does X1, is that essential for that? Is that part of how that works, or could you do that anyway?
It runs over our Wi-Fi network, and it goes beyond secure home security. You can control your lights or your thermostat, and it's fantastic because you can take it with you on the road. I mean, I could look at what the dog's, there's a dog on the couch right now or not. We had a funny story. One of our technicians set it up so that he didn't want the dog on the couch. So he was monitoring it from the office, and the dog was up on the couch, and he put a microphone in and said, "Get off the couch," and the dog's looking around.
Wow.
So, but it's fantastic because it's a fully integrated system, and I think the integration of all these pieces is very important to make it easy for the consumer to live a connected life.
An interesting example of that, I did a panel in the Ford booth yesterday with a guy from Flextronics, one of the top Flextronics executives, and he talked about a product they're making, because they make a huge percentage of these IoT devices. In fact, the Fitbit on my wrist is made by them. One of the companies that's coming out soon with a device to measure your water, it'll go in your pipes, and if you have a leaky toilet, it would be able to measure that amount of additional flow and send you an alert to your smartphone so you can turn off your water when you're on a business trip. I mean, those kinds of, probably you'll want to integrate it into what you offer. But this kind of thing, I think the range of alternatives that are emerging for control and intelligence and efficiency is really beyond what most people have yet recognized.
And I think the cloud plays an important role in that. And we've been rolling out cloud DVR and cloud streaming with John's team. And the cloud DVR enables you to set and keep your recordings up in the cloud so you can access them wherever you go. So if you're moving from Boston to Chicago, it'll take you won't lose any of your recordings, and you can actually be recording along the way, and it's all up in the cloud for you. And the cloud streaming enables you to, any device in the home, any IP-enabled device, it becomes a TV screen. And so you see these great enablers like Wi-Fi and like the cloud, and I think that it's going to accelerate the pace of change, and the organizational changes we've been talking about are going to be necessary to adjust to that.
It's interesting, just another side point, Facebook bought a voice recognition company this week, and one of the speculations I read online was that it might be because they wanted to get into the Internet of Things to control devices that are too small to have a screen. And you could use voice communication with something like a Fitbit device that was, in your pipes or whatever. I don't know. I think there's so much that's coming here. But when you said that just now about moving to Boston, you mean like if you're a Comcast customer in one city and you move to another city, you can just like flip a switch and all your capabilities go with you? Is that
That's right.
Is that why you want to buy Time Warner, so that you can?
Well, we think there are a number of reasons why.
Add to the efficiencies. Add to the efficiencies.
We think there are.
I guess you do.
Reasons,
obviously, the answer to that's yes, no doubt.
We think we can bring great new capabilities and products to the business, and Time Warner is a fantastic company, and we think it presents a great opportunity for us and the consumer.
Is it going to happen?
Absolutely.
Okay.
David, if I could take it the second step, though, we tend to think of all these technologies as siloed approach. What you see from all three of us in the commonality, it's only when you move horizontally, you integrate the whole home.
Yeah.
Merely controlling a thermostat or how much water is in your toilet or your electricity or your TV or your refrigerator is not where the scale will be. If you look at it as you do smart cities, which lots of us read about, but the only smart cities that have really worked well is when the mayor understood the whole architecture they're going to play across. They thought about job creation. They thought about GDP growth. They thought about healthcare. They thought about traffic management. They thought about parking.
Right.
They thought about how they would create an entrepreneurial startup. And so one of the important things I think to come away from this sessions with is if you don't think horizontally and you don't think about how you provide the total solution, you'll be disappointed in results.
Okay.
If it's only a connected basketball at an NBA game, that's not going to give you much. But if you think about how you change the whole fan experience, first in the stadium, then virtually with Comcast and others to the home, and you're able to see the heartbeat of the player when they're shooting a tough foul shot, and you're able to see their vertical jump, and you're able to see the speed at which they're dribbling, it's when you connect all this and get relevant information to an outcome that you get the desired results.
So now you're answering the question I was going to ask you very shortly, which was why you say everything instead of things. Is that why? What you
it's
just
exactly. Getting the data points is almost worthless to you. It's how do you change the process behind it that gets you the desired outcomes. So it will surprise you, but probably out of the top 10 countries in the world, 5 of them are going to move with tremendous speed to become digital. And as they think about that, they don't talk technology at all. They talk GDP growth, they talk about education, they talk about changing health care.
You're talking about the heads of state.
Head of state. Doesn't matter if it's Israel, France, Germany, India. That's how they think in terms of the direction. And so they think about how do they get the desired economic results or the desired social results in terms of the outcomes. And we have to change as companies the same way. And we have to lead by example on how you do things much more innovative in a new world.
Okay, just to mix a few themes here, but you're famously Republican, but would you put the U.S. into the category of a country that's anywhere near that mindset?
No.
Yeah, I'm afraid that...
So that has nothing to do with Republicans or Democrats.
No, I know it doesn't.
Let me use an example of a Democrat. President Clinton, he generated 22 million jobs in 6.5 years, 18% real growth in incomes, 16% GDP growth. And this is where this industry isn't a political issue. It doesn't matter your form of government. Your best form of government is good GDP growth, full employment, rising incomes. And I think regardless of form of government or parties, you're going to see our country and others, if we don't move, get left behind.
But you have such a global view. You're in so many countries. And I know you really talk to a lot of heads of state. And it is true that there are some countries that are really taking this bull by the horns, right?
Yes, it is.
I mean, mention a couple of the ones that you're impressed with.
Well, I think what Chancellor Merkel is doing in Germany, she calls it Industry 4.0. She realized that she missed the technology move. Germany did an amazing job in basic manufacturing in many other areas. But technology didn't participate as much. She's looking at how does she create an environment for her country where she digitizes the country and the industries that makes them much more competitive on a global basis. In India, what the new Prime Minister there, Modi, is doing, I think he's going to be a great leader, but I think if I were betting on an emerging country right now, I'd bet on India.
Really?
He understands what a digital India could be in terms of job creation, a different environment, inclusion of minorities, really making a difference. The Israelis, regardless of political party, Shimon Peres's party, Netanyahu's party, the third major party who was the cabinet finance minister, they digitized their country to understand how does this really make them more competitive on a global basis on it. So I think you're going to see that occur in countries. Most progressive cities probably are Barcelona or Hamburg or Chicago.
Chicago.
In terms of making the changes, yes. Rahm Emanuel there, the mayor there, he really gets what it means.
Do you think a lot of these government leaders, if you said IoT to them, they would know what it is and they would be able to participate in this kind of discussion, or are they not to that point?
Oh, I think they...
Or IOE?
I think they understand the technology concept, but when I talk to them, I don't talk at all about technology.
But they get it.
I talk about GDP, and then you tie it back to what does this mean? I talk about inclusion of minorities.
But they have to get the tech piece to really understand the connection, don't they, John?
No, they have to just instinctively know that if they don't transform their business, i.e. their country, become digital, they're going to get left behind. And to survive as a business leader or a country leader, if you don't get trends right, you get left behind. So that's where I think it's very important in this country and others. If we don't get it right in terms of how you build out broadband to every American, if we don't get it right in terms of creating the right open environment for that to occur, we will get left behind as a country. And other country leaders get it. Businesses get it too. That's where I believe 60% of large enterprise businesses won't exist in a meaningful way in 10 years. They won't make the transition quick enough because they're now all technology companies.
Countries can't stop existing, but they can really get in trouble, right?
I think the
I guess they can stop existing if you live near Putin or something like that.
They can do tremendous harm to their citizens, their health care, their global competitiveness, their standard of living. And the speed of countries is going to be like speed of companies now. Countries used to take decades to make changes. I think you'll now see the changes made in a couple of years. And I'll surprise you on one. I would not bet against France. I think they're in tough economic times at the present time, but I think their leadership and their business leadership understand they must change as a country. And I would not be surprised to see them move and really understand the power of the digital country.
Cool. Werner, you had something.
We had an example from John with respect to the move of Angela Merkel, with respect to Industry 4.0. Why is it called 4.0? It's considered as the fourth industrial revolution after mechanization, automation, and computerization. Now it's the connectivity of the industry. That's the reason why it's called the fourth industrial revolution, which is a disruption as well. But this is what I would not like to focus on. Rather, I would like to put out very important, from my perspective, that Angela Merkel has shown to us. She has she broke up paradigms, you know? You said Germany is good in manufacturing, so we are good, period. Don't care about that. We will be good forever. But then all of a sudden, she realized we are not good necessarily in the Internet of Things, in connectivity, in working with data, analyzing data. The next question was, do we know what that means for our manufacturing sector, which is a huge one?
Merkel herself asked this question?
26% of the German GDP is to the production sector. That is huge compared to most other countries. So that would be a big threat if we don't manage to get an answer on that. And that she took initiative because she broke paradigms. And that is my issue. Part of innovation, being able to disrupt or to anticipate disruptions, also needs the capability to break your own paradigms. Yeah? To stand beside yourself, to take a very critical external perspective on the kind of business that we are doing currently and asking, is that robust forever? And in order to set up such a team or a group that is able to break paradigms, we need both the internal perspective and the external perspective as well.
Neil, your business is almost entirely in the United States, if I understand it correctly. But you play such a role in the provision of broadband nationally, right? How do you look at this issue of US competitiveness and the responsiveness of government and how you, as a giant player in the network infrastructure, can help the country move forward, especially in the IoT era?
Well, the Comcast was formed 50 years ago by Ralph Roberts, an entrepreneur, and his son Brian currently runs the company and is an entrepreneur. We walk the floor, and my list grows longer and longer of good ideas to...
Is he here?
Yes, he is. Is he?
Well, I don't know him in the room, but he's in Vegas. He's in Vegas,
yeah,
though, right? Yeah,
absolutely. And it's he consistently challenges us to, break the paradigm and break the mold, and we should be getting into new parts of the business, and we should be getting broadband to everyone. We have a Internet Essentials program that's a low-cost program for children on food stamps, and so I look at the floor and I say, gee, there's a lot of bits that need to flow to deliver all these things, and it's great for our business. And we want to continue to invest. We invest tens of billions of dollars in increasing the capacity. The bandwidth consumption goes up 40 to 50% a year, every year. And our Wi-Fi usage now, I read a stat the other day that the average Xfinity Wi-Fi user on a mobile device uses 2.3 gigabytes per month. The average mobile user over cellular uses 2.0, or a little less than 2.0. So there's more traveling over Wi-Fi. And we need to have an environment where we can predictably ensure some sort of return on that investment. But we love the growth of the Internet of Things, and we love the environment we've been in. We've been under the open internet order since 2010, and it hasn't affected the way we do business at all. We love open internet. It increases all these, it grows all these new businesses and new opportunities, and kind of drives the internet of everything.
I was in at least 4 conversations in the last couple of days here at CES where somebody was bemoaning how US broadband speeds were falling behind other countries. Now, you have some consumers that have 500 gigabit already, but I know Internet of Things is going to require more bandwidth. I mean, it's going to require, huge, right? Yep. John loves that. That's why he recast the whole company around this trend, right? Yes. Basically, you did that 2 years ago.
Or 4K or 8K or...
But are we going to, as a nation, are we going to get to that bandwidth that we need fast enough?
Yes. Broadcom was showing DOCSIS 3.1 out on the floor, running at 5 billion bits per second. And it's on our existing plant. And we'll be doing market trials of that this year. So I think absolutely we'll get there. And from my perspective, if there's a consumer demand, a consumer need, we'll figure out a way to fulfill it.
Neil's being very polite, and one of the reasons we complement each other is I tend to be very direct. If you watch, the technology will be there. Great companies like Comcast will make it happen. Hopefully, our industry will provide the technology. If we don't have regulatory incentives to encourage broadband build-out to every American, and we go back on issues like Title II to the old world, the broadband will not get built out.
I mean, making it a real government priority.
You have to make it a priority, and you have to be very careful.
It's not just about net neutrality. It's about really just building more.
Yeah,
right?
and Chancellor Merkel, once again, on her position on net neutrality, she had a very progressive stance. She said you have to be able to get an economic response for a build-out, i.e., if your service providers build it out, they have to know they're going to get a return. If they don't know that they can have variable services within that, their country will not be competitive. So I think very often we can have great themes that all of us resonate with as Americans, but if we don't keep track of, we need to be the best digital country in the world if we're going to lead in our standard of living, if we're going to be inclusive for all of society, if we're going to have the best health care, the best education. And so everything we do should be based upon how do you build out the digital world in this country better than every other country. And for those from other countries, there's going to be a race between countries and cities to do it. And well-meaning regulation can sometimes result in a disaster for a country.
I mean, realistically, John, that perspective is not adopted in Washington at the moment by any means.
That is true.
It's not even close.
That is true.
I mean, you don't even have a Congress that understands what we're talking about up here.
I don't know if I would agree there.
You don't agree?
No, but what I am saying is I think we have to be
not
careful
very many
on a very high level. We can form an opinion on a high level. My experience has been Democrat or Republican doesn't matter, whether you're a member of the Senate, Congress, the administration. If you take time to understand the issues, and if you start with what is the key outcome you want to get, then you can get to a logical conclusion.
Right.
My worry is we're going to make decisions without the right data because we think conceptually, here's how we did it in the past. If we ran our three companies like we ran them in the past, rather than where it's going to go in the future, there'd be three new CEOs on it. And our government has to change the same way. Transitioning.
But making the connection to GDP growth and the connectivity is one that I think could be a lot more effective in Washington.
Absolutely. That's what Merkel understands. That's what Cameron understands in the UK.
Cameron gets it.
Exactly. That's what Hollande gets in France. That's what Netanyahu gets in Israel. That's what Modi gets in India. And I think we as an industry, when we argue our points, we've got to present it in a way the average American can understand it.
Good. Yeah. Okay. Change the subject.
Transition. If you watch and we talk about the Internet of Things, let me give you a data point and then maybe draw it into a fun give and take. There's as much data created every year as created in the 5,000 years that we've been tracking things. Yeah. So your issue will not be about connectivity to data. It's how do you make the data really useful? The right information at the right time, the right person or machine to make the right decision. Let me use an example of the weather station and give you an idea how this explosion is going to occur and then draw it back, because they are one of the companies in the world that are changing with tremendous speed. They used to have 2.2 million locations that they went to that they'd give you an update on the weather 4 times an hour.
This is the Weather Channel?
The Weather Channel. Yeah. And if you look at the Weather Channel, today they have 2.8 billion locations, which they update 15 times an hour.
They have on the tips of airplanes.
Exactly, just about everywhere.
So they have amazing stuff.
But then it goes back to how do you use this information? And this goes the right information at the right time. If you're an insurance company and the sector of a city that was about to get hit by a hailstorm, if you notify your people who have their cars in that section and let them know a hailstorm's coming at this time, 50% of them will move their car to get protected. So our key is how do you capture this data in a way that allows you to combine information in a way that makes business outcomes or entertainment outcomes or healthcare outcomes. And that's really the challenge we face. How do we really make it useful?
Yeah, it's interesting, John, because we went at that data initiative in a very meaningful way about a year ago, and we found out there were data fields all over the business, isolated, that weren't hooked and had to be cleansed, and so we're just at the point now we can call the business intelligence unit, where they can reconcile things between databases and come up with actual usable information that we can apply to the business and better meet the consumer need. But it took, we had to centralize it and get it all in one place so we could actually use it effectively.
And my gut feels you had to change organizations as you started to do that.
Yeah, because some people, it wasn't so much about, some people felt they had to own the data, and it wasn't so much about the ownership as it was, you can maintain it, but we need to use it in a more effective manner.
You guys, it's a very interesting discussion now. We are talking about the data that are available, will be available if everything is connected to the internet and the data are available. But one of the key questions that we have for both for the automotive business, but also for home appliances and such, is who is the owner of the data? And I think that is an issue that has not yet been thoroughly discussed and solved between the industry players. Yes. Between you gentlemen, you are in the connectivity business. Between ours, we are in the hardware business, but also in the connectivity business, or at the OEMs, if we talk, for example, about automotive manufacturers, or home appliance manufacturers, or whatsoever. Do we have any idea how to solve that problem, how to make sure that there is a clear definition of data, that privacy is kept and secured?
It's interesting.
That we have a cloud that has a high level of reputation, so that end consumers can trust in the cloud and know that exactly only those data are used which are authorized by the end user for cloud use. I think for the acceptance of the Internet of Everything and for the penetration on a local and a global basis, we need definitely to solve this problem, which is not yet clarified.
It was interesting. Yesterday, I interviewed Mark Fields in the Ford booth, and he was so emphatic, and in his keynote as well, that the data, any data they collect as a result of the connectivity of the car belongs to the driver and the owner of the car. He's like really way more emphatic than I think most people have been on that kind of theme up to now. So when you look at, say, Werner, the connected to home appliances, is your opinion that, you know, anything coming out of that would unilaterally belong to the consumer?
Yes, we do. If you talk about home appliance, let's be specific. That makes the discussion much easier. If we have connected devices, and Bosch follows the policy that from now on, everything that has some electronics inside will be connected to the Internet. Every product, every platform. Then we need to think about how to make sure that we have acceptance from the end users to give the data to the cloud. And the first issue is we definitely define what happens with the data that are within the cloud. What is the purpose of these data? These data could be used for statistic purposes, to redefine the specification of our platforms. They could also be used for predictive maintenance, for household appliances or the energy management system of the house, and. And the user exactly knows what will be done with these data. And he has the possibility to agree to checkmark. Yes, you get this data, this data, this data, and this data I don't want to give to you, but I do acknowledge I don't get the respective service on this. I think that is a very important. Approach.
Who's going to build that checklist and implement it? Who's going to be the person handing that checklist to the homeowner?
So basically, I think it's not an issue of the platform in terms of hardware, software, interfaces, and architecture. Rather, it's an issue of the applications that are developed for the various things that we have in the home. So, if we develop an app for energy management, for example, if you would have all of the information about the energy consumption, about the timing and the frequency and the intensity and such, we would learn a lot about the living behaviors of the people. And we would like to understand, do they want that or not? If they say we don't want it, they can decheck the respective issues.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough topic for us because I'm closer to the European view than I am the American on privacy and trust. I think you've got to be close in terms of privacy and trust and respect for the data. On the other hand, if you don't allow the data to be assimilated in a constructive way, and it can be as simple as the energy use in a home, if you're going to save the money at the peak load of the day when a utility company might give you a 20% reduction on your bill for the month, if during the peak load you allow them to turn down your energy capabilities in your home and still protect your refrigerator, et cetera, you can only do that if you combine the data. If you're going to solve many of the chronic illnesses we face and healthcare issues, while all three of us want our data private about ourselves, I fully don't have a problem as long as it's protected, that data being used to determine the common approach on what new drugs might be able to work to address an issue.
If it's anonymized, something.
If it's anonymous. So I think this is one that if the checklist had to be checked on the amount of data being created by each one of us as a human being, you'd be checking all day.
Yeah, really.
So we're going to have to find some automated way with privacy and trust at the core of it.
The key for acceptance of exchanging data with the cloud and providing for companies like yours or mine, for example, is that the end user understands he has a real value add out of providing these data. Yes. If he doesn't have a value add, he will not accept that the data will be transformed. Yes. So this is the basic issue. We call it user experience. If we can enhance the user experience and show that he has a high benefit, for example, by lowering its energy bill, If we don't manage to do that, but I'm sure we can manage to do that. If we manage it, then we get the respective acceptance.
Neil, you got to jump in on this.
I think if we've been in the data protection business for a lot of years. I mean, the content we have to protect. It's proprietary to the content companies. So digital rights management's been very important to our company for a lot of years. I think the principle of transparency that Werner refers to is going to be critical. And I think that if you apply certain principles, that the consumer will be aware of what data is being collected and how it's being used, then all else will follow. You know, I was at AOL many years ago in the early days, and they had a very, very strict, firm policies about, you know, how data was being used, and it was a child-friendly place, and it attracted a lot of users as a result.
But I got a question for you. You must be the country's largest ISP, right?
Yeah.
And people don't have a terribly warm and fuzzy feeling toward their cable company. Let's face it, right? Is there a marketing challenge for you, or I don't know what kind of PR? Do you have to reposition the way people think about your company in order to effectively operate as the largest ISP as these very emotional privacy issues begin to prevail in the way this data is all flowing?
You know, I think we do need to transform our customer experience. I think we've got work to do. I think the onboarding process and
I see what I mean. This is no surprise to you.
No, that was Brian clapping.
Oh, that was good. Yeah,
but you know, we took our top product person and put them in charge of the customer experience. I think it can be and will be our best product, and I think it's going to take some time, but I think we will get it done. And there's a lot, you know, with the tools that the employees use, the reliability of the products, there's a lot that we can do with self-service. We have a tech finder, which we just launched, where it tells you where your technician is and when they'll show up.
Yeah.
We just did a deal with UPS where you can pick up your set-top boxes at UPS stores for convenience. So I think there are many things we can do, and it's just a matter of focus and getting it.
Well, I know one of the things Jennifer on your team was telling me about was rethinking the way your 80,000 employees, so many of them go into the homes, that they're really much more partnered with the homeowner, solving problems when they get in there. And they're not just like making it work again. They're really helping you set things up and understanding the potentiality. Is that a big priority?
Yeah, it is. And we're making that an even higher priority. I think the products, if you think about them, are much more complex.
Yeah.
You've got, you know, advanced Wi-Fi routers. You've got, you know, IP, you know, television. You've got digital phone systems. You know, in the business services area, it's even more complex. The security products. So we're hiring and training our technician, hiring a higher level of technician. We're training them more. We're having them spend more time in the home. And we're ensuring that before they leave, that the home is all running okay. And I think there's a lot we can do. There are a lot of diagnostic tools where we can self-diagnose what's going on and fix it before someone actually knows that there was a problem.
Yeah, that sounds good. Do all that.
We will.
Okay.
David, if you think about it, we've covered a lot of material here today. But the opportunity in front of us with digitizing every country, every city, every one of us, our personal lives, et cetera, has tremendous payback. It also has a chance to change our lives in very positive ways. But understanding the security, the privacy issues that go with it are a key component part. But if you walk away with only one concept, think back to a year ago what you thought of the digitization of companies and countries, the Internet of everything, if you will. Think where you are today. Realize that 2 years ago, only about 4,000 articles were written on this concept. Today, it's 45,000. Over the next year, it will probably be 500,000.
Hey, Moore's Law for articles about Internet of Things.
That's how you track the activity from Urals Media Group. But it does offer the opportunity to change more than the Internet has ever been able to do itself.
Yeah.
Probably by 5 or 10-fold what the Internet to date has been. Okay. So it's fun being a partner with these two guys.
Well, we have had a very wide-ranging conversation, so I think it's been fascinating, and thank you guys for being conversational and saying so many interesting things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, time.